Long arm quilting machines were not designed to do t-shirt quilts. They don't get along very well. We're lucky that we can leave ours set up for t-shirt quilts all the time. If you're going back and forth with other types of quilts, you may need to remember what your setup is. Some of the other issues you'll have is, first is the dust. Your t-shirts are going to make a lot of dust for you, so make sure that you clean out your bobbin casing and keep your machine cleaned. So I clean my bobbin casing out every single time. The other issue you may run into is your needle bar. So your needle bar is this part right there. So as you're quilting through some of the t-shirts that have paint on them, the paint becomes atomized, which means that you're putting so much heat into it that paint is actually vaporizing. You'll actually kind of smell like what's burning. It's actually just the paint melting. What happens is all those little pieces of paint that you've melted will tend to congregate right on your needle bar. Every once in a while, you'll get a really squeaky needle bar. So make sure you keep that clean and keep it oiled. That'll help keep your machine in better shape. The other issue we found with long arm machines is they make loops sometimes. Some machines are worse than others, and we can show you exactly how to take out a loop now. Sometimes when you're cleaning the quilt, you're going to see a loop left by your long arm quilting machine. I like to have these tucked in so they don't show. So I simply open up the loop a little bit, and then I use a little pick, go in, grab the loop, and hide it. That's all there is to it. Practice if you have to. Hopefully your machine doesn't do this. Long arm quilting is a skill. You need to practice before you actually start making customer quilts. I would suggest you practice on a simple 9-patch. What we do is we take 9 12x12s, put them together, and then put it on the machine and quilt it. The first time through, we quilt it with one color. Then when we get to the bottom, we unpin it, roll it back on, and quilt a second color. Then we roll it back up and quilt a third color. That way you can practice many different skills. The first thing I do before I start sewing is I test the stitch on the edge of the quilt. After you run your stitches, clip it off, pull your backing back and take a look at the stitches. Make sure that you like the stitches. Every time you change your bobbin, you also want to do this same thing because you're going to get a bunch of fuzz coming up. And if you have it on the edge, you cut it off, throw it away. But if you have that fuzz on your quilt, it will be a glob that you'll have to work on getting out of there. So always test your thread every time you change your bobbin and at the beginning. Before you begin quilting, look at your quilt again. First, make sure that it's still lining up and looking really good. Next, look at the blocks that you have and run your finger over some of them. The ones that are going to wrinkle like this are going to give you trouble, and you're going to really want to make sure you're using one hand to help keep those flat. Then, go to your first block. On my first block, I always use the same design. It's kind of my signature design, and it's easy for me to do. It's my easiest design that I do, and I do it because I know the design is a great warm-up, and it also tells people, oh, this was an Andrea quilt. I'm going to start this block here, but it's a very large block. And if I pull my machine down to the bottom, I'll see that I can't get the entire block done. So I know that I need to break this into 2 pieces. Along here, I know I can get this block done. This block goes too far down. This block's too far down. And this block will have to be broken into 2 sections also. So I'm going to start up in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to work from left to right. So you notice I've done 2 things. One, I use my left hand, my non-dominant hand, to make sure that everything is lined nice and smooth. Second, when I was quilting, I did not have my thumb on top of the start button. I had my thumb and fingers wrapped around the handle here, nice and relaxed. If you have your hand like this, you're going to get a really bad cramp in your thumb, so make sure you actually just grab your handlebar nice and even. Now I stopped, but I haven't cut my thread because now I know I can go straight into this design. So I need to think about how I want to go from left to right, and I want to try to get as many blocks done in a row as I can without stopping. Every time you stop, it's going to cost you money because you have to stop. So the best way is to kind of think ahead. In the file that came with this video, you'll find some basic quilting designs. These designs are just a starting place. This is your work, and you need to develop your own repertoire of designs. I have spent hours drawing designs with pencil and paper. If I need, I can reference these drawings while I'm quilting. The more designs you have in your head, the faster your quilting will be. Hanging behind each of our quilting machines, we have a quilt of sample designs. So I'm going to do a design where I come down and come back up and can start here. I'm not going to trace this guy. He'd be very interesting to trace because he's kind of plasticized and I don't want to do that. I'll probably trace this guy here. And I could do this block if I wanted to. If it works, it works. If not, I will skip it and I'll skip this block because I can't get it done. If I can get this block done, great. If not, I can do it when I roll up. And I know I need to get at least the top half of him down. So I have this block completed, but it's not perfect. My center of the block is right here, and I went towards the center but didn't make it to the center all the way. It's okay if you're not perfect. You don't want to take any of your stitches out unless you absolutely have to, because it's going to leave little bitty holes in your t-shirt. So only remove stitches if the stitch is really, really bad and you have problems. If the design's not perfect, you just have to keep on going. You don't want to ruin the quilt. As I work on this block, I came in here and I know I want to come out here. And what I tell myself is, leave room to come out. When you're quilting, you want to watch where you're going and not where you are. If you're watching where you are, you're not going to have smooth, even lines. It's going to be really jerky because you can't anticipate and plan. So watch where you're going. Now I need to roll the quilt forward. What I need to do is know where to roll it forward to. So I start down at the beginning and I find where my last stitches are and I run my finger. And if I have a place that I've not done, I will move up to that place. So if I roll up to here, I'm good. It's really important to do this, and you'll remember why when you're working and you've missed a block. So I'm really watching and making sure I don't miss any of my blocks. It's also a good time to find any strings that you've left. I find it easier to cut them now than later on when I'm trying to clean it. So now I'm going to roll this ahead. I'm going to roll it to right there. So I've rolled it ahead, and you'll want to know on your own machine how far you can go up. I still can get the top of this one here, so I'm good. So now I want to go back to the process of looking at the backing, looking to make sure it's all nice and smooth. Take your time to really look at the back of your quilt. You don't want any wrinkles on the back. Next, I walk along here and I feel for wrinkles. I want to make sure that it's nice and smooth. Also, I look along here for my line. See how this kind of jig jogs here? I'm going to loosen this up a little bit and straighten these seams up. So now I know I need to finish this block, and I need to finish this block, and I'm going to work from left to right again. All right, so now I need to think ahead about what I need to complete. I need to come here, and I need to do this owl. I'm going to trace this one too. So I can plan to come to here, or even back here, or back to the beginning, depending on which design I use. I want to come to here, I think, if not there, get this one done, and then move into this design. When I trace the word owl, I'm going to trace the whole word at one time. I'm not going to trace each individual letter stopping and starting. I'm going to find the shortest distance between each letter to be my jump off point. The nice thing about tracing is you don't have to be perfect. They're going to see the back and they're going to see the front, but they're not going to see the back and the front at the exact same time. That way your mistakes won't be seen. There'll be times when you need to trace something onto a quilt that's not actually in the quilt. Sometimes this may be a name or some sort of event or activity that somebody liked. We do that by printing that out on paper and tracing over it. Now you need to remember that whatever you trace on the front is going to show up on the back in reverse image. So if I trace this onto the front like this, the back is actually going to come out backwards. So I'm going to trace one forward and one backwards, and we can see what they look like on the back when we're done. All right, let's look at how easy this paper tears off. It's basically perforated. You can either take time right now and take it all off, or just leave it and take it off during the cleaning process. So now let's look at the back of this quilt and see how those turned out. Sorority letters can also be traced, but this will depend on the thickness of the letters. Some letters are made up of multiple layers of fabric. These may be too thick. When you are tracing a graphic, you should look for line drawings, things with a definite edge, and designs that are over 4 inches wide and tall. Small designs are difficult. What you should avoid are human faces, photographs, and drawings that are shaded. Some quilts will include photographs of people. When you're quilting these blocks, I would suggest doing an all-over stippling, but avoid the eyes, nose, and mouth of the subject. If you have bling on a t-shirt, quilt around it. Otherwise, it'll break your needle. If you have a block that's larger than your bed, you might not be able to get that block done in one round. Can't get to the bottom. So you're going to make sure that you plan your design that it can be broken into 2 sections, a top section and a bottom section. The other option would be to move the quilt forward with your needle in the down position. You can do that, but you got to be very careful that you don't rip your quilt. So I really would suggest that you plan a 2-part design on a block that's too big for your quilting area. Having a functional pocket on a quilt is a crowd pleaser, so don't quilt it shut. If you left a functioning zipper in your quilt, you can quilt up to each edge of the zipper. Or if you can, open the zipper and quilt a little bit inside the zippered area. Then when you quilt the face of the block, you won't have to get as close to the zipper. The button area on a baseball jersey is too thick to quilt over, so just quilt as close to the button area as you can. You can tell if an item is too thick to be quilted if you can't easily roll your machine over the item. Periodically, you may discover a hole in the back of one of your quilts while you're cleaning it. I have found that the easiest way to solve this problem is simply to put a patch over it. We have a number of different patches we use, and we just iron them on. So we put the patch over the hole, there's the hole, and we simply put the patch over it, and we cover it with a piece of t-shirt material. Grab our iron, I have a piece of Teflon underneath there, and we iron that on. And there I have it, my hole is fixed. I have put hundreds of patches on quilts over the last 25 years, and I have never had one person ask me, why is there a patch on the back of my quilt? People think it's just something neat. So don't worry about it. If you have a hole, patch it and go on. As you roll down, you'll come to the point where your seam is. You want to make sure that the seam is all one direction, not 2 directions, because then you'll have a lump. So I use a long skinny ruler, and I put it in, and I pull that seam down. So this is what the ruler's doing, is pulling that seam flat. It doesn't matter if you go up or down, you just want to make sure that it's the same direction across the entire quilt. You may run out of bobbin thread in the middle of a block. When you restart that, You need to make sure that your stitches go over your last stitches so it's continuous. To do that, I line up my needle over the stitch and I press my pickup button to take a single stitch. It'll land right on that stitch with a little practice. And then I'm going to take 3 more stitches, moving it with my fingers and lining it up perfectly. And then you can start quilting again. That's what it looks like if you do it right. If you do it wrong, this is what it's going to look like. Your stitches are not lined on top of each other. So do it right, take your time, 1 stitch at a time. When this is cleaned up, it'll look really good. That looks much better than a stop and start like this. When you're quilting, I would suggest that you listen to an audiobook or music. This will help you divide your attention and let your subconscious do the quilting. Move your body while you're quilting. If you're stiff and tight, it will show up in your work. When you stop and start your machine, remove your thumb from the off-on button. If not, it'll cause you discomfort and make your movements stiff. We typically quilt a border with a linear repeating pattern, for example, loops or waves. To learn more about borders, you can purchase our Borders video. I hope my instructions have helped you become a better long arm quilter for t-shirt quilts. Do a good job on your quilts and your customers will love you.